I'm Greg here with Galaxy Gardens today, and we're going to show you how to make a West Coast IPA. Alright, so I made today easy by getting a bunch of stuff ready yesterday. Really kind of makes the brew day a lot simpler when you have everything ready for yourself. So this beer has a, as you can see here, I already crushed the grain. And basically, this is a combination of mostly pale 2-row malt with some Golden Promise, Vienna malt, and then just a very small amount of Crystal 60 to give it a little bit more body, and then some carapils for head retention, which is something I pretty much put in most beers. This beer is different than the New England styles I usually brew. I haven't actually brewed a West Coast style IPA in probably like 4 or 5 years, so this is kind of fun. This is kind of the style that I started brewing IPAs with, and then the New England style blew up and I kind of jumped on that bandwagon, so here we are. You'll notice there's no flaked products in here, no wheat, which I would usually put in a New England IPA. That contributes to the haze and some of the mouthfeel that you get from a New England IPA. You don't really want that in a West Coast. You want it to be clear. I will be using some clarifying agents in this beer as well, which is something I would never do with the New England IPA. The water is all set. It's actually already at temperature, so we're pretty much ready to mash in now. The profile is a little different than what I do for a New England IPA. Normally I do 200 ppm of chloride and 100 ppm of sulfate for a New England. I'm actually doing the opposite, 200 of sulfate and 100 of the chloride. That's because that'll bring out some of the bitterness, which is something you want in a West Coast IPA and not in a New England IPA. We've got our Sparge Water all set up here. We've got our hops set up, small bittering edition here, and then we'll be using a mixture of Citra, Mosaic, and Simcoe hops in a couple different editions. There will be a dry hop edition as well. And for the yeast, which will be added last, of course, we're using Fermentis Saf Ale US05. This is kind of like the classic West Coast IPA yeast strain. Also oftentimes known as the California Ale yeast strain. It's pretty much the same thing. So now it's time to get started. Alright, water's all heated up. It's about 159 degrees now, so when I add the colder grain to it, should get down to 152, which is the temperature we're aiming at. So we're going to slowly mash this in. Again, it's always super important to do this slowly. You just dump it all in, you'll get a bunch of clumps. Clumps mean that there's just certain grains that aren't getting mixed in with the water. And if they're not getting mixed with the water, there's no conversion happening. We're basically converting sugars out of the grain, and we're at a range in temperature where they're going to end up being very fermentable. Alright, so we got the mash set up now. All the grains in the Robo Brew at this point, and as you can see, last time we made a video, the pump broke in the making of the video, so we had to improvise. We'll get a better efficiency this time because we got a new pump. This is the Brewzilla without a pump, but I just jerry-rigged one in there, so pretty much serves the same purpose. If you see in there, you can stir it up. Give it a stir every 10-15 minutes or so. For the most part, we're just leaving this be for another 45 minutes to an hour. Just make sure the temperature is where it needs to be. Got a nice thermopen. And this is exactly 150 degrees. It's right in the range it needs to be. Alright, so it's been about an hour on the mash. It's about time to mash out. So I'm just disconnecting the pump now. put that in there, wash it out in a little bit. And now we're gonna take this. All right, so now I'm gonna stick the handle in here. And now we just have to wait for this to drain out. Meanwhile, I will raise the temperature on this to a boil. Get a head start on that. This is the Sparge Water. It's heated to about 170 degrees. This is just to rinse out any sugars that are still left in the grains. There's a little more in there. I probably don't need it. And we're just going to wait till this gets to about 7 gallons. So I'm still waiting for the Sparge Water to completely go through here. Like I said before, we're just trying to get about 7 gallons of wort, and I'm already trying to boil it. So at this point, we're basically just getting all the liquid out. Discarding all the grain, we'll just end up throwing that into a garden bed. It makes great compost, but otherwise isn't really all that useful at this point.
You can make bread with it.
Yeah, you can.
We can give it to the chickens.
Yeah, so there's any number of ways you can recycle that. So I'm gonna see now real quick how much liquid we have in here. We're just under 7 gallons, so I just have to wait probably another minute. I don't think I need to add any more water. There still is a little more hot water here if I need it. And then we're just waiting for the boil. This one's gonna have a lot more boil addition hops than a New England IPA would, because it's supposed to have a lot more hop bitterness. And the further into the boil you add hops, or I should say the earlier in the boil you add the hops, the more bitterness you get. All right, so we've got about 7 gallons of wort here. Looks nice. And now it's just a waiting game for when it gets ready for the boil. And we'll add our first hop addition. Okay, so this wort is now boiling, and so I'm going to add the first hop addition. We just took the grain out of the bed, or the mash, and dumped it into the chicken coop, and they loved it. They are running around eating it, enjoying its warmth. So we're going to add these hops now, and start my timer. So it'll be 45 minutes before our next hop addition. And what I just added here was just a ½ ounce of Citra hops at about 13.2% alpha acid. That's the sort of bitterness content of the hops. This is giving it about 45 IBUs off the bat, and then we'll be doing 2 more additions before it's time to ferment it. All right, we're 10 seconds away from our second hop addition. So let's get that taken care of. We've got a combination of Simcoe, Citra, and Mosaic hops in here. So I'm just adding 15 more minutes. We got 15 more minutes to go, and then that will be it for this boil. The end of the boil, so I'm turning off the unit, turning off the heat And there's a last hop edition. It's a flame out edition, meaning you put it down right as soon as you take the heat off, get it off the boil. At this temperature, there will still be some hop utilization, or I should say like some bitterness imparted, because it's still, probably 210 degrees at this point. It just stopped boiling. I also put a Whirlfloc tablet in there. That's basically a flocculant, which just means it's a clarifying agent, which means it'll help take any haze out of the beer. So I'll add that in now. Give it a couple stirs. And now I'm gonna be lazy with the way we chill this. We could put water through the chiller and that will make it faster, but instead I'm just gonna let the glycol chiller do the work. It'll take about 3-4 hours to actually chill this beer down to yeast pitching temperature. So yeah. Well, next step will be to move this to a fermenter, and I gotta clean one out real quick. Now it's time to fill this fermenter with this hot wort. So I'm just gonna move it over at hot temperature because I'm lazy and let the glycol chiller cool it down. I guess a negative effect of that, if you care that much, is that there's gonna be a little bit more guck that ends up in here because it hasn't had time to settle out yet, but I don't really care because we can just dump the trube. So we're gonna move this over. Then I'm gonna just put one of these thingies into the fermenter, and this will circulate glycol that's below freezing temperatures throughout it. It's not a huge coil, so it'll take a little while for it to get cool, and then later we can pitch the yeast. All right, so this is still super hot, so I'm gonna put this coil in there and put the temperature probe in it, and the probe is gonna say, holy crap, this is really hot. Let's put a ton of glycol in and out of here, and in a couple hours it'll be the right temperature to pitch the yeast. I'm just gonna stick this airlock in here. I'm not gonna put any water in it. I will put sanitizer in it when the temperature is achieved, but because this is going to be decreasing so much in temperature, there's going to be issues with air coming in and out, so I'm just going to leave this with nothing in it for now. We got the temperature where it needs to be, about 68 degrees. So now at this point, it's time to aerate the wort a little bit, and then we can pitch the yeast. Alright, now it's time to pitch the yeast. We're going to use Fermentis Safel US05. It's pretty standard West Coast ale yeast. And I'm not going to rehydrate it. I just dump it right in here. And the wort rehydrates it just fine. It works every time. And to me, I just get all paranoid mixing with water because I assume it's going to get all messed up and infected. Rather just have the yeast make contact with less in general. This has been sitting in sanitizer, and boom, all set.
You added liquid to the top?
Yep, oh yeah, I added liquid to the top now, yeah. It makes it a true airlock. The reason I didn't have it in there when it was still really hot is because it would have just ended up sucking the water into it, into the beer, or the wort. It's all set now. This is officially beer. It has yeast. Alright, so that's about it for the process. So this just needs to sit and wait for a little bit. There will be one dry hop edition in a couple days, and then other than that, we just need to let it do its thing. So thanks for watching, and that's it for us today.